So before we get started, my goal is to convince you to do it my way. So if you're easily offended, then you can leave. Good. We're all very strong-willed here. Good. Also, if you like the module's context or display suite, you might be offended. So this is Simplify Your Life with Panels, and I chose that title because we all want to build things well, have a life that's simple to maintain, just like the website that we have. And so my goal is to help you have a little piece of your life that's a little bit simpler than it was yesterday. So this is me. I'm on Drupal.org. I'm not on Twitter. I'm waiting to see if that platform really takes off or not.
I found a Twitter account for you, but you haven't tweeted in the last 5 years.
That I do have.
There's one.
There is one. It's from past life. If you tweet at me, I'll still see it. So I guess I'm starting my Twitter account now. I work for a company called Banyo Corporation. It's a big Drupal user. Most people don't know about it in the Drupal community. We are a magazine publisher, and so we have a small department inside that handles all the websites. And so we have mostly Drupal 7, some Drupal 6, no more Drupal 5, and a few static sites. And so we maintain and build all of those. But before I started there, I actually worked for a company called Media Current, and they are a Drupal agency, and they do traditional agency work. And I just have to put a shout out to them because they are an awesome place to work, an absolutely great place to work. So if you are a Drupal developer and you like Drupal, and that's what you want to do full time, and you want to work at a place that treats you well and trains you and pays you well, then check them out.
What's the name again?
Media Current. Media Current. I have to put a shout out there because they really are great. Oh, shoot. How many of you know what the highest traffic Drupal site in the world is? Weather.com. I put the slide up too quick. It's a funny story. The vice president of engineering, I think his title, his name is also krisahil. And so Weather.com was actually a client of Media Current. So at Media Current, I was always like, hey, ask krisahil which one. And I was like the lower krisahil. But a few times I did get the real krisahil's email. So I kind of feel like I'm, a vice president of something. So that's who I'm not. So as we all know, when you're building a site, there's a good way to do it. And there's a not so good way. And probably all of us have done both. But best practices is really all about learning from those who have done it well. Learning from those who have succeeded. And I'm not really good with memes. It's like Twitter. I'm trying to get on with it, but it's not something I do a lot. So the goal of our talk, and again, we're going to hit it at a pretty high level, is imagine you're starting a new site. And you have all these, let's say you have wireframes or mock-ups even. And so you have this concept of a page, and then you have all these blocks. But then the big question is, how do you place those blocks? What's the best strategy for placing those blocks in the right places? And so again, my goal is to convince you to do it our way. And again, we're going to keep it pretty high level, not get into the details, which would complicate things. So who here has done a site perfectly? Who's like super proud of this site I did so well, and there's no issues? That's not us. We've all built things that we don't want to write home about. I remember my first official Drupal site. I may or may not have had database queries that manually inserted values into field tables. If you get that, then you're good. But these are all things that I've done, and I assume a lot of you guys maybe have done. Anybody ever Google, how do I programmatically place this block in this crazy place? You've done it. Or maybe you put in some crazy CSS because you want this one specific node to have a 6-column layout, but all the other nodes have a 1-column layout. You know you've done it. Or added CSS and JS outside of the prescribed methods. Or added SQL queries inside of template files. And some of you are thinking, that's okay to do. It's okay, but there's a better way. So, again, we're planning a site. Imagine you're planning a site, and so you want to take a step back, research, and plan it. I know that doing a proper functional spec, or even just a brief plan, it's not the most fun thing in the world. But a well-planned site is a lot more fun to build than a cowboy coding site. So, again, here's our basic page layout. Imagine you have a header, footer, you got a sidebar, and then your main site content. So when I say the word content, I'm meaning that main area, page content. And then, again, the big question, how in the world, what's the best way to get my blocks into those regions? Each of those 4 is a region. So out of the box, Drupal has this, the core blocks structure page. It's kind of simple, but the big downside is you can only place one block into one region. So if you want like the menu to show in the navigation region, but also want it to show in the footer, that's not possible using just this approach. So we're just going to throw this out. Context module. Context is a good module. It does a lot of good things, and you can do a lot with it, but it's sort of, if you use this in conjunction with panels, which I'll talk about, it makes your life hard. So, panels. This is why you're all here to learn about panels, to make your life simpler. What is it? It's really a suite of modules to help you, again, put the blocks in the regions the right way. So, we want to use one tool set so that our life is easier. And I'll show you a few pictures. I don't have a lot of pictures, but we have a few. It's a drag and drop interface, so imagine that you've got some maybe some regions. You can drag a block from the left region, drag it to the right. Layouts. This is a really fun part, and I think it's a part of panels that a lot of people overlook. And this is especially important for what I call front-end devs. People call them themers or whatever. I don't do CSS. I make things ugly, so I respect front-end devs. Layouts are a tool that front-end devs can use a lot. A layout, I'll get to that. This is one of the important parts. It just makes me so excited. And then context, I'll touch on this also later. Contexts are, it's the context of the page. So a certain block on a given page should know what kind of page it's on. So it knows things around it. So, and we'll talk about that more too. Panels tools. If you Google for panels in Drupal, you'll get all sorts of different names, and they're not all apparent what they do. There's a lot of them, and I'm going to touch briefly on each of these. The one we're not going to touch on is called panel nodes, and it still works, but I'm going to recommend that you don't use it. There's some better tools that we'll use. So, a few prerequisites to the whole panels ecosystem. One is layouts. This is what I touched on. A layout is basically a set of regions. So you can have a layout that defines 4 regions. That's easy, top, bottom, left, right. You could have one that defines 6 regions. You could have all sorts of different layouts. And within each region, you put blocks. Now, when I say the word block, if you're like a real Drupal developer, you might think an actual Drupal block. What I mean block is anything that you can place there. So a block, a view, a menu, whatever. Hang on. I have my arrows confused. I need to go down. So out of the box, panels comes with a few layouts. So here's an example of some 3-column layouts. There's some 2-column ones. But this is where the front-end devs can have fun, because it's pretty easy to make a new layout. You have a simple PHP file, and you can copy one of these. You build the regions. You have a template file, which basically just says, print this region, put some wrapper divs around it, and some CSS. So whenever that layout gets used, that CSS gets used. So your CSS can generally be attached to the layouts. So you don't have a huge CSS in your theme just for layouts. And these layouts can be bundled together. They can be stored in your theme directory or even in custom modules. In contexts, this is where we're talking about if you have a page and a block gets built for that page, the block should know, hey, what's around me? What sort of data is available to me? Am I on the home page? Am I on a node page? Is my page actually someone's user profile? It should know what's the context. So the context makes it so that only certain blocks are available for that page. So if a block says, hey, I should only be used on a user profile page, that block will not be available to be used on, say, the home page. Make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, so the first big tool that we're going to touch on, and again, we're going to keep it very high level, is called Page Manager. How many of you are developers who have ever used Hook Menu? Anybody? Okay, so you can use Hook Menu to build a custom page, but if the custom page is actually like a page that someone's going to be viewing, you can use Page Manager for that, and it's a little bit easier. So here you can see that I made this custom page, and I gave it a URL, a path of node titles / the number 1. But the number 1 is actually an argument. That's the node ID. So I could have put 1 or 20. And what this page does is there's a block. This single block on the page just says this node's title is, and then it grabs whatever node from the URL. So it grabs node number 1 and prints out that node's title. It's a very simple page, but I built this page in like 1 minute, because I know what I'm doing. No custom code. When you enable the Page Manager module, there are some pages that come out of the box. So imagine you are viewing a nodes page. Out of the box with just Drupal, that page goes through Drupal's node system and node template files and all that kind of stuff. When you enable Page Manager, there's a node page that gets enabled. So all nodes are going to be run through Page Manager. So you can say, okay, whenever a node's viewed, I want the title and then the body to appear. Or maybe the title on the left and the body on the right. But that's too simple. So let's put the title on let's put the body on the top. Let's get crazy. Put the title on the bottom, and then put a picture right in the middle. Because we can do that because it's all panels. We can drag and drop. So now all the nodes run through this. And then what's cool is that we have a system called variants. And with variants, you can have a few panels configurations, and then you can have rules that determine which variant gets used. So for instance, you can say if the node type is article, then use this default variant, which prints the title and the body. But if the node type is like a press release, then I'm going to print the title and the byline, and then like a blurb, and then the body. You can get some real crazy stuff. Who here is excited about variants? Okay. All I ask is don't get too crazy with the rules, because it can be hard to debug later. Mini panels. This is kind of a real quick slide. Mini panels are a way that you can basically group blocks together into another block. So let's say that you wanted to have a block that's like a 3-column block. You can actually build a mini panel, a 3-column mini panel, but blocks inside each column, and then that itself is a block that you can use wherever else you want. You can put it in the footer, you can put it in the sidebar, so it's like a way to group those together. So this is an example where I have a mini panel with like the logo, the title, and the search box all up in the header. Panelizer. Has anyone here used Panelizer module? Okay. When I first tried to use it, I had someone talk me through it probably 2 or 3 times, and I still failed when I installed it the first time. It was probably like my 4th time configuring it until I actually understood what it was trying to do. It's a very complex module. There's a lot of checkboxes. Read up before you start. It's a very powerful tool, though. And like Spider-Man's uncle says, with great power comes great complexity. So why is Panelizer so great? Well, remember when we were talking about the variants? You could have one variant for an article, one variant for a press release. And depending on which type of node it is, different blocks display. Well, this is fun. You can have multiple, we'll just call them variants, multiple variants for a single node type. So let's say that you have an article, it could be a full width, or it could be like a teaser view. Actually, let's say it could be a full width, or it could be just like a slim width. And so you have these two variants, and when an editor creates an article, they can say, hey, I want this to be a full width or just a slim width. And that's just like another field. What's even crazier is for any one specific node, you can then take that variant and say, I want to customize just for this specific node. I want to add these 3 blocks in the footer of that node for this specific node. That can get a little crazy, but again, it's possible. And who here knows what a view mode is? Anybody know what a view mode? Okay. You can have all of those options for all of your different view modes. So when an editor creates a page, let's see, when the node is being rendered as a full content, you can choose the variant. When the node is being rendered as a teaser, you can choose the variant. Again, this is a lot of options. I think most sites don't need this much power, but I want you to know that Panelizer is an option if your editors need layout control at the editorial level and they have a lot of content. It is a good option. So here's the interface when you're creating a node. You can have this is your variant for the full page view, and then for the teaser, you can choose what blocks get displayed when the node gets built as a teaser. View modes, if you have time to research them, are very powerful, but I think a very underused part of Drupal. And then finally, the last tool that we're going to talk about is called Panels Everywhere. And the reason it's called Panels Everywhere is Panels takes over your entire page. So remember back to one of our earlier slides when we had that graphic of the page layout. Remember we had a header, a footer, a sidebar, and then the main content area. Up until this point, we've only been talking about the main content area. We've only been talking about tools that can affect that area. And how do you get stuff into your sidebar? Well, a few ways you could do it up to this point is you could, when you have a block, you could say, hey, put me in the whatever sidebar, and that works. But Panels Everywhere takes over the entire page. So now you have a drag and drop interface to control the header, the sidebar, the footer, the content area. Everything goes through Panels. So really, it's a replacement for Drupal core's block and region system. It's a little bit of a controversial model because it takes over a lot of stuff. But what's also cool is that it allows you to have variants, not just for the content area, but variants for the entire page. So let's say that you wanted to have the default header has the menu and your logo. But then, let's say that whenever the URL contains the word Chris, you want the header to have a picture of me. You can have a variant that says, if the URL contains the word Chris, then we have a variant that prints my picture in the top. If any of you want to do that, we can talk about how to do that. And then how to use this with Panels Everywhere. One of the big things is that you have to use one of their supporting themes. So you cannot just take any old theme off of Drupal.org and use it. If you go to Panels Everywhere's modules page, it lists which themes are available. And I don't do a lot with themes, but I know that a lot of the major ones are supported. So it's got pretty good support. And this is one of those where if you don't start from the beginning of a project, it's going to be tough to integrate later. And again, this is here's a picture of the Panels Everywhere configuration. So in the top region, we have the header blocks, and we have the page messages. That's like your tabs, and then on the right-hand side, we have a user login block powered by Drupal block. And in the middle, where it says page content, that's that special content region that we were talking about previously. Now it's its own block, and we can even take that and put that in the sidebar or the footer. But the cool thing is now we have complete control over the entire page using panels. Next up, Panels has a pretty vibrant ecosystem, so there's a lot of modules that can extend it. For instance, just the other day, I needed to have this like tabbed interface, have 3 different tabs, and whichever one you click on shows different content. And I was going to use the module Quick Tabs, but because of what was going to be in the tab, I couldn't use it. Then I found there's this module called Panels Tabs, and you just create a mini panel with 3 columns, and you give it this certain module layout, and it does it all like out of the box. I was like, this is so nice. So there are a lot of things to help with this. Two of the bigger ones are fieldable panel panes. Look that up. I can't explain it now. And then classy panel styles. I have to put a shout out here because some former colleagues at Media Current wrote this module, and it's sort of a bridge between your front-end devs and your back-end devs. It allows the front-end devs to create these like styles, and then when you're placing blocks, you can choose which styles I want to use for these blocks. So, in closing, is Panels perfect? No. Obviously, there's problems with it. It's a fairly complex system. There's a lot of tools, but it's also a very mature system, and a lot of large projects use it, a lot of small projects use it. And I had a friend in college who always asked me, Chris, the decisions you're making tonight, are they going to make the Chris of tomorrow happy or sad? My goal is to help give you some tools so that the you of a year from now will be better able to maintain and debug the site that you of right now is building out. Any questions? Yeah.
A couple questions. I haven't dug around the code, but I found using panels, it's really hard to adjust the region spacing. Between 2 regions, if you have 2 blocks in panels, it's really hard to narrow down the space. It kind of has too much white space everywhere. And the other thing is, can you talk about performance a little bit when using panels?
Yeah. As far as the white space, I know that Panels adds a lot of divs, like a lot of nested divs, and I don't care about that because I'm a back-end developer. I do care about front-end performance and stuff, but really having 5 nested divs is not your problem. Loading 20 Facebook iframes is your problem. But to tackle the white space stuff, layouts. Create a custom layout or a customized layout, strip down the divs. As far as performance, if you Google like Panels Everywhere performance, there was a study that says Panels adds a little bit of performance hit. But with any tool, you have to weigh the performance hit against the maintainability hit. Will it save us 10 development hours and just be a little bit more heavy on the server? In that case, I just saved $1,500, and now my server runs a little bit hotter. I need another gig of RAM. I'm not a performance expert. just put it behind varnish and be done with it.
So,
I'm just joking. Yeah.
a follow-on to that, how would you compare that with display suites? I was hoping to hear that.
Yeah, display suite is an entirely different beast. Display suite really compares more to view modes. So display suite is more concerned about what goes in the content region. There's a lot you can do with it, but I sort of see it as your choices are to use panels suite or use display suite plus context. Again, it's not like a moral choice. I've leaned towards this because I have more experience with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If you're sub-theming a SASE theme that uses something like Zen or Singularity, does this have an advantage or do they conflict? Is it a choice one or the other for responsive themes?
No. On one of the first slides, we go back to the very first. I'll put there's a link to, I think it's called sandcastle.binarycorp.com. This is basically the platform that we built. This is built on panels everywhere, Panelizer, and it uses a lot of custom layouts. So our front-end devs have built these, and these layouts are responsive. So as long as you're using the layouts that we have defined that include the CSS that's responsive, it works. So you can go to that site and kind of play around with it and see what all the different things are. Just please don't try to hack in there or anything. It's a public URL, but not really publicized much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, you can applause now.